Welcome to our first Sunday of the new year, and we're happy to have you here watching at either 9 a.m. or 10:35 p.m. Last week, we asked if our viewers would be interested in joining us live in the studio as we look back at the week's big stories. We were very pleased and a little surprised with the response, and you'll be hearing from us soon about those plans. But right now, here's what's on the menu for today's show. First, out with the old, in with the new. Outgoing Mayor Jim Strickland said goodbye, and new Mayor Paul Young was sworn in since we were here last together. I'll ask my panel about the criticism both men are receiving for how they handled their exit and entrance from the stage. Next, the crime fight. Just 3 days in office, the new mayor launches a public safety task force featuring a who's who of elected and law enforcement officials. The mayor says will bring a pandemic-level response to fighting Memphis's crime crisis. But will the city council sign off on keeping Police Chief C.J. Davis as the city's top cop? So far, most on the council are refusing to say. And finally, kissing the ring. More Mid-South congressmen and senators are endorsing Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump. Who has and who has not kissed the ring so far, and why or why not have they kissed it?
Oh, no.
Join me as my panel. Otis Sanford is ABC24's political analyst. Catherine Burgess is with the MLK50.com website. Congratulations on your new gig.
Thank you.
Yes, and Tawan Stout-Mitchell, of course, a political consultant who's with us frequently. Let's start with, I guess, the outgoing administration, if we can. And there was I understand politicians always kind of want to define their legacy as they saw it. And the outgoing mayor, Jim Strickland, made all kinds of efforts to do just that. Over the course of his last week or so, even though he's done these weekly updates via email for his entire 8 years, 5 weekly update emails in 9 days before he said goodbye. He wanted to cite progress with renovations to community centers, a new tennis center, parks as well. Economy, he says, is doing much better. Poverty is down. He criticized Shelby County schools for rejecting his COVID plan and not returning to in-person classes sooner. And as far as his crime legacy, which he knew was going to be a hot topic, he once again went on and on about the revolving door defense, we'll call it, about how there's been such a lack of trials, and there's a way too big of a tendency to reach plea bargains. He thanked Governor Lee and Speaker Sexton for their efforts in fighting crime, and he complimented, I put a question mark there, Shelby County DA Steve Mulroy for his renewed statements about how he's going to crack down on violent crime. He said the proof is in the pudding when it comes to whether that actually happens. So I'll start with you, Otis, as I like to do, and tell me what you think about how the mayor exited the stage.
Well, I think you were spot on when you said he's trying to define his legacy himself. He doesn't want anybody else doing it, especially the news media. And so he made extra efforts at the end of the year with those email blasts. He spoke at the Memphis Rotary Club, the last meeting of the year, and he outlined a litany of accomplishments. And I give him some accomplishments. And overall, I've said that he's been a pretty good mayor. Not great, but good. But his legacy is going to be defined by crime. Let's just be honest about it. He ran on crime, and ever since then, homicides have been going up and up and up every year. So that's the issue here. As far as his battles with Steve Mulroy, I think he's probably getting a little vindication there because Mulroy has come out and tried to be more aggressive in how they're going to speed up the docket, the calendars, and try to be more aggressive on repeat offenders, and others are now in lockstep with that criticism. So he may have some there. But his legacy is going to be defined by the city's crime problem. There's no other way around it.
And one reason he may not want the news media to do it for him, Catherine, is because that's the thing. We all know he campaigned on it for both terms, and not any progress was made by the end of his 8 years. In fact, we had the worst murder rate we've ever had, and we know about the smash and grabs, car thefts, all things just skyrocketing. But quick to point the finger in another direction.
And I think that's what stands out to me is Mayor Strickland knows that crime is his big failure over the course of his administration. And I think we would all agree with Mayor Strickland, one person can't solve everything. Yeah. But the key is that it wasn't only his big failure, it was his big promise. In 2015, he promised, if you elect me as mayor, I will reduce crime. The words "will reduce crime" were on his campaign website. And he said he would do it. And clearly he didn't do it. He wasn't able to beef up the police force like he wanted to. He wasn't able to incarcerate his way out of crime, as some have described him as trying to do. Crime didn't decrease, and that was what he said he would do. So I think we could certainly hold him to that.
Tawan, your take, and I know that you have a particular beef with how he described what the Shelby County school system did when it comes to his COVID plan and returning kids to in-person learning.
I think he has some successes. I think his failure was eloquently stated by my colleagues. But what he also did was took shots at people as he walked out the door, which I didn't think was dignified at all. To take shots at the council and say, and by the way, I didn't sign off on any of those pieces of legislations that you passed.
The Tyree Nichols ordinances.
Yes, I thought it was beneath the office of the mayor, because if he really had a problem with the legislation they passed, and if he really thought that they crossed over into his realm of authority on how to do the job, he should have taken it to Chancery Court and let the court read the charter and decide. But it's my understanding the council writes laws and sets policies and owns the money. So I don't know, but if he felt like he had a beef with that, he should have taken it there. And with the school system, you know, I think the problem with our school system is so complex, you can't use simplistic statements to say if they had used my program, we wouldn't be so behind in our grades, in our grade system. That's not necessarily true. During COVID, most poor children have 3 and 4 generations living in one household. You could have lost grandmothers who were the sole dependent survivor for a child. So I don't think we should make blanket statements like that. Just say it was offered. They didn't want it because they looked at some other factors. Or leave that out.
Yeah. Well, that was my question, was why take that on? As a mayor, you have very little say over progress the education system is making, so why even take that on?
And I think the word that I've been using for the mayor over the last few weeks of his tenure was prickly. He's been very prickly. Tawan just outlined a lot of it. And, you know, he didn't really have to do that because he did have some successes that he has outlined. But you don't need to really pick a fight with everybody going out the door, and he did. And he showed a prickly side of him that I had not seen.
Well, it seems in this town especially, and this mayor is included, it explains maybe why he didn't want to come on the show in his last month. They like the softball interviews, and they have very thin skin. And I think we've made every effort to be fair, both the good and the bad on the show, but for some reason there's an inordinate number of politicians in this town, Republican and Democrat, who just do not like a critical eye, which is kind of why we're here.
And we're going to talk about one of them later on.
Yeah.
It's called democracy.
Right.
And accountability.
And if you run for office, you should be willing to be held accountable by the public, and we're a part of the public.
Absolutely.
And a free press.
Right.